Our next inductee this evening is wrestling national champion Jill Remiticado from the class of 2003. A true pioneer in athletics at Pacific, the first women's wrestler in school history, Jill was a three-time United States Girls Wrestling Association national champion, winning the 121-pound weight class in 2000, 2001, and 2002. She was also a four-time All-American, wrestling to a third-place finish at 114 pounds at the 2003 championships. Jill was the impetus for the formation of Pacific's groundbreaking varsity women's wrestling program. She helped lead the Boxers to a second-place team finish in their first national tournament at the 2002 USGWA National Collegiate Championships. In addition, Jill represented the Boxers at the national level through competition sanctioned by USA Wrestling. She was a two-time top 6 finisher at the U.S. Senior Open and finished 5th at the 2002 U.S. World Team Trials in the 55-kilogram weight class. At this time, we'd like to welcome to the podium Frank Johnson, 1991 alumnus Pacific, and himself a 2010 inductee of the Pacific Athletic Hall of Fame. Frank was Jill's coach during her career here at Pacific and will speak on Jill's career. Frank?
Wow. For the first time, someone will have to lower this even lower so that I've been on stage. So why didn't we have Carrie go last? Wow. And what some of you probably didn't get out of that is Carrie is really, really humble. And he's not kidding. When at 53, he's not just claiming he could make the relay team here. He's a world champion in the Masters division. His time, he could make the relay team here at Pacific today. No joke. So he's a pretty humble guy. Just don't ask him for help with your computer. As he said, he's 30 years a wrestling coach. That's how I know him. He's coached wrestling for 30 years. And he wrestled here at Pacific. Mike Clock doesn't even know that, because most of you don't know is there's one man that Kerry Cameron's afraid of, and he's sitting in the front row right here, Mike Clock. Kerry used to go in, because he's a successful high school wrestler, and he's been a successful high school wrestling coach. He would only come in the room and wrestle until Clock showed up, and then he'd run out the other door, because he knew he'd make him wrestle, right? So anyway, way to go. I'm so glad Kerry's being inducted. Jill Remiticado is the real deal. She proved on several occasions during her time here at Pacific that Blake was right on, referring to her as a pioneer. And I've been around Pacific for a long time as a student, an athlete, an employee, and a coach. In fact, for 23 years. To give you some perspective, that's 4 presidents and 3 athletic directors. So this place is in the backdrop to some great memories for me. And I can tell you, in 23 years, Jill is one of the most outstanding people that I've been around. And I say that having been around some pretty remarkable people. She's one of the most outstanding I've ever been associated with. And it's not just because of her accomplishments, but because of the way she carried herself. And the interesting thing is, the only thing that Jill ever asked for was a chance to practice with the guys in our team. And every opportunity that she had to wrestle here, she earned it. And I can tell you, she convinced Mike Clock to move forward with me to try to start a women's program. And you know that I started the women's program here, but it's because of her. She's the reason. She's the first female wrestler that I've ever coached, and she came here and wrestled when there was nothing glamorous about it. She was in a room with 19 state finalists on the guys' side, and it was just her as a girl. And Clocks, he wasn't into it at all in the beginning. Like, are you really going to let her come out? I said, well, yeah, she really wants to. And then every day it's like, well, it's a rough day. You think she'll be back tomorrow? She was back every day. Literally, she got bloodied up, right? Because the guys weren't nice to her. They weren't jerks to her either, and they helped her get better. But she never asked to be treated any different than anybody else. She wasn't doing it for show. She just asked to practice. And as you heard from her accomplishments, you don't want to mess with her. But I can tell you, as the only female I've ever coached, or the first female that I coached in wrestling, I know this. I think I probably learned more from her than she did from me. And I know that she inspired me more than I inspired her. And I can't describe to you how painful wrestling practice is, but the truth is, most guys can't handle it. At college wrestling, they really can't. Two quick points might lend some insight into this. How many, just by a show of hands, of people in this room have ever been involved in a boxer brawl? Just by a show of your hands. Wow, one. How many of you know what a boxer brawl is? How many of you know what a boxer is? Yeah, okay. When I was in school, we had actual brawls for the boxer. It was great. The wrestlers and the Hawaiians were the only two clubs that could ever get the thing, because the guys couldn't figure it out if they were a football player or a Hawaiian, so they all were Hawaiians. So it was just the wrestling team and the Hawaiian team fighting for their thing most of the time. But the boxers showed up again when Jill was a student here. And so this club had it, and the word was they were going to show it. So the wrestlers were really organized. They set up all over campus. And these guys actually showed it off the top of the roof at the University Center. And the referees were positioned, or the wrestlers were positioned all over campus. So they threw it off the roof, right? And then guys, a bunch of people came in, and they all went separate ways. Wrestlers chased them all, right? Followed them all over the place. And none of them had the boxer. But Jill was with the group that was at the Pacific Athletic Center, and this poor Alpha Zeta guy, she thought he had the boxer. And so, without giving him any details, Jill took him out. And so he learned the hard way. You don't mess with Jill. And he was a little upset. The guys loved it, right? The other girl wrestlers loved it. Like, yeah, they all came back and talked about it. And the guys ended up getting the boxer because of that. They left it here, and it was upstairs in the University Center, and they ended up getting it. She was part of that. She just chased the wrong guy. And then something that gave me a little bit of insight into coaching girls. I was telling Jill one time, she wrestled with the guys, and then she continued to work out after season to get ready for the USGWA. And so I was talking to her about really pushing herself hard because she didn't have as many workout partners. And I remember this just so clearly. I said, Jill, listen, when you run, you have to run so hard. You're gonna jog, and then you're gonna sprint. And you have to run so hard that you feel like you're gonna cry. And then you let up. And she looked right at me and she said, Coach, I do cry. And so I just wanted to give her a big hug, but I just thought, okay, well, you just go until you cry, and the next time you go a little farther, right? And so the truth is, yeah, there were some tears shed, but I'll tell you, I don't know a single guy that ever did something in wrestling that didn't cry also, right? I've seen many a man broke down to tears, including myself. Will, you wrestle for Coach Clock and see if it doesn't make you cry. But she was there for that. And the last little story I'll tell you is, and I saw that Mark Lynch was here tonight, and when I was coaching at Pacific and he was coaching at Forest Grove, he called me up one time and said, hey, I got these girls that turned out for wrestling, and the guys are just horrible to them. You know, they don't want them out for the team, they're not giving them any support, and that wasn't our deal. And we'd already had a team by that time, so we had some really good girls. They'd been going at it for about 6 weeks, and the guys' high school season was just starting, so Lynch was like, what can I do to get these guys to quit giving the girls such a hard time? So we talked it over, and then I said, well, hey, why don't we just have our girls go over and run one of your practices? Oh, he was excited about it. And I was teaching at Forest Grove at the time, so it was great because the kids were all excited. Oh, we're going to have some girls come in. Oh, that's really neat, yeah. So Jill and company went to Forest Grove High School, and, you know, they got garbage cans ready for the kids to throw up in because we knew what was going to happen. And these girls, they started leading a 1-hour warm-up. And it was hilarious to see guys, you know, bending down, grabbing their knees, and the girls running around going, you can do it, come on, you can do it, come on. And guys over throwing up in the garbage can. They had a brand new respect. And Jill, she gained a ton of respect, and she really changed a lot of people's minds about girls wrestling. And I can tell you, when she was here at Pacific, her high school back in Hawaii, they had maybe 2 or 3 girls on the team. When Jill returned home to Hawaii, they got enough girls to make a whole team and then won a state championship, due in large part to her input. So that's the kind of influence she had. But there's one more deal I'm going to tell you that opened my eyes to other people's, the way that they see things. We were in Ellensburg, and the big deal was we're going to take this trip, and it was only Jill, and how are we going to travel and stay? Because 4 guys to a room. Nobody's going to be able to stay with a girl. That's a liability thing. What are we going to do about that? And we were trying to figure out what we were going to do. And she came along, and we had a solution. We got lucky. They had the wrong number of rooms. She got her own room for free. But at the tournament, she got a big old black eye. And as you guys have seen Jill, she's a beautiful girl. And we were walking into a restaurant. We're in Ellensburg, Washington. And imagine the guy that Carrie described with the cowboy hat, and that's Ellensburg, Washington. So we're walking into the restaurant, and people are giving me the dirtiest looks ever. Like, why are you giving me stink eye? What's your problem? Why are people looking at me like this? And I look over at Jill, So you can imagine Jill walking right here, the big old black eye. People looking at me, and I said, Jill, maybe you should go back with the guys. Go walk back with the guys for the rest of our time here. And she got it. She didn't expect that either. But anyway, Jill's accomplishments on and off the mat, they make her a prime candidate for induction into the Hall of Fame. And I was surprised that she was being inducted so early, but I think she's worthy. And as anybody who knows me knows, I've been critical of the Hall of Fame process in the past. And even though some of the points I raised last year have not been addressed, I'm not going to repeat what I said last year. I think that Jill's induction, and she's the 8th or 9th wrestler inducted in the 20 years of the program of the Hall of Fame, and I think she's a step in the right direction for sure. And the only reason I mention this is because, like most alums, we want the Hall of Fame to be something that we can be proud of, and the process that's used needs to reflect not the biases of those who direct athletics, but what the words say. And I think the teams that were, like the 1982 team that placed 4th in the nation, and the 1990 team, and the 1999 team that placed 8th in the Division III Nationals would agree. We need to figure that out. But again, Jill is her being inducted so soon, I think it's appropriate, not because she's one in a million, but because she's one of a kind. She really is one of a kind. And that's literally the reason women's wrestling was started, is because of this girl right here. That's the reason it was started. And to give you a little some perspective for how successful she was, in an emerging sport like women's wrestling, the top tier is the U.S. Open. She placed in the U.S. Open. The next level down is the USGWA. She won that 3 times, right? And then below that is, not worth mentioning, compared to the 2, because there's so much disparity between them. She won that USGWA 3 times. She placed in the U.S. Open. In addition, she did it as a physics major, with other schools calling her saying, hey, come wrestle for us. We'll give you a full-ride scholarship. She said, majoring in physics? The only thing that kept her from being a double major in physics and Japanese is wrestling. She's just a study abroad shy of a double major. And she had a double minor, math and Japanese, with a physics major. And she did it with a high GPA. And that's not all she did. This is another reason not to mess with her, if any of you are thinking about messing with her. She's also a competitive weightlifter. In the 121-pound weight class, Jill still holds the world record in bench press. So some of you football players, this might embarrass you. But 121 pounds, she bench pressed 203 pounds. And that's right. But it gets better. Deadlift, world champion, 336. So, and she's continued to compete in weight training right up till 2009, and her new passion, she's a mom with a great little guy. And so, I just want to end by saying that Jill, she really did it. When we went to the dean and the athletic director and said, hey, we want to start a women's program, they said, no, can't do it. Can't do it. We don't have the money. Just can't do it. I don't think we would have pursued that, even though the logic was very compelling to do so, if it weren't for Jill. And Coach Clark, he kept coming back to me and said, she really deserves that. He even put his own money up. We funded the program our first year, right, when they said no, and it's because of Jill. So she's only been out since 2003, but I think the Hall of Fame committee hit a home run in inducting her, and quite literally, she is the face of Pacific University Women's Wrestling.
Don't know how to recover from that. Good evening, everyone. Ladies and gentlemen, fellow Hall of Fame inductees. Thank you for that great round of applause. I really appreciate it. In the words of Isaac Newton, if I have seen far, it's because I've stood upon the shoulders of giants. And as you can see from the previous presenters, Pacific Wrestling has a very long, decorated history of success. I'd have to say, if I've seen far in this program, it's because I had that program to stand on. I've had the support of Coach Clark, Coach Frank, and even Coach Mark, who's up in the stands right now. You know, without them, I probably would have just been a student. And being at a place like this, I mean, you know, it's being a student or the other extracurricular activities. And you know, wrestling itself is hard. At times, it wasn't really about being a girl on a wrestling team. You know, I was pretty much the smallest person on the wrestling team for a while, just like I'm the smallest person on the stage right now. But you know, we were all in that large padded room for the same reason, and that pretty much equalized any sort of gender discrimination, anything else. I mean, basically, you were in that room to work. And back when I was coaching high school wrestling, you can even ask Nick Strang, who's a current student and wrestler here. I would tell him, you know, there were days when my shirt alone would weigh about 3 pounds just from the blood and sweat that drenched it. Not all of it was mine, which is pretty disgusting, but you know, you do what you gotta do. So, you know, we all wanted to wrestle, and you know, we did not want to lose. We pretty much did everything in our power to uphold the legacy of Pacific Wrestling while we were on the team. And you know, I say team a lot because I came from a high school where our school motto is one team. But beyond the team mentality, Pacific University was my home away from home. I mean, coming back here, it is homecoming weekend, but it is like a second homecoming for me because, you know, having graduated in 2003, there's a lot of familiar faces here, and just the welcome I received is so warm, and I couldn't imagine going anywhere else, you know. But when I talk about my teammates, we were a family. Basically, when you spend 2 hours, sometimes 3 hours, sometimes 6 hours, because women and men's practice, women had 6 a.m. practice with a crazy Iranian coach where we'd have 3-hour practices, 1 hour of warm-up, 1 hour of technique and live, and 1 hour of conditioning. Then we said, hey, why don't we go to the men's practice at 4, which is another 2 hours. I don't know what we were thinking. But anyway, you're doing that 5 days a week, plus maybe 8 hours of tournament for 3 months of the men's season and probably 3 to 6 months of the off season for women's freestyle. That's, you know, you spend a lot of time in that padded room, you kind of go a little crazy. But, you know, you call those people family. You share sweat, you share blood, you share tears. And so, you know, by working hard as an individual, we could also bring out the best in each other as a team. And I never thought of myself as being at a disadvantage. Like I said, you know, we're all there to make each other better. And I was doing an injustice to my teammates if I didn't work my hardest. So, you know, it didn't matter if I was a girl wrestling a guy or a girl wrestling a girl. If I didn't do my best that day, I wasn't doing my best as an athlete, and I wasn't doing a service to my teammates. You know, and so being inducted into the Hall of Fame tonight, it means a lot to me for many reasons. You know, I feel honored to be among the great athletes and coaches, you know, that lend esteem to Pacific's history, and, you know, pretty much to live forever, recognized among the legends for their accomplishments. You know, everybody wants to live forever. But, you know, this honor is also a testament to the coaches and teammates who've enriched my experience here. You know, those individuals inspired me on a daily basis and motivated me every day. You know, it came from the championships that were written on the wall. We used to have painted circles in the wrestling room. And every day I'd be practicing, I'd probably be dead on the mat, just lying there staring at the circles thinking, one day my name is gonna be up there. So every day, or well, when I still had some energy, I would run up and I would jump up against the padded wall and touch my hand into a circle, saying, that's my spot, even though, you know, it was somebody else's spot, but that wasn't the idea. I wanted to be up there, and that was my motivation. You know, to my teammates who were there every day at practice, cheering me on at line sprints, or like Jason Smith here who chipped my tooth. That's you, buddy, right there. You know, But they were always gracious. They always kept me humble. They always kept me working hard. And less every day I felt like the last person. I mean, we used to run a 5-mile loop around Forest Grove, and those things I dreaded. I mean, I'm short. I don't run very fast, very far. So I was so far behind, some days I thought, oh, I'm ahead, you know? I don't see anybody. But it was very inspiring, and especially working with coaches like Coach Clark and Coach Frank, Coach Mark Lynch. You know, they inspired me with their dedication and commitment to making Pacific University's women wrestling's team a reality. And coming from where I came from, where my graduating high school class was the biggest graduating class, you know, as far as girl wrestlers. When I started as a freshman in high school, there was 1 or 2. And so it's basically me, 114 pounds, wrestling a 98-pounder. I mean, it's like, it's not fun. To coming to a full varsity women's team, and then going on to inspire other young women to coach, as a coach, and to win a high school state wrestling title. And also inspiring Nick Strang. Hi, Nick. He's a former wrestler on my high school team. He's a current wrestler and student here. And one of the things that really inspires me, actually, is when they have the athlete write-ups on each of the student athletes. He mentioned that he came here because of me and another coach, Lauren Otake, who wrestled for Pacific. So it's come full circle. Thank you, Nick. But ultimately, going forward from here, I see a lot of student athletes in the audience. I just hope you take a night like this with you. As a student, I remember Frank would tell us, oh, there's a wrestler being inducted into the Hall of Fame, and we'd all come and support. You know, never did I think, sitting in the audience, that I would be up here talking to students. So going forward, I just hope that you stay inspired by yourselves, take inspiration from your teammates, from your coaches, and from your teachers, because it is very enriching to be here as a student athlete and to perpetuate your sport. I mean, I'm a diehard wrestling fan, inspired by other diehard wrestling fans, as you can see by their commitment. I mean, it takes years and years of passion to really make it tangible for other people. So it's these kinds of people and experience that I hope you take away from here. Continue to do good, be good students, be good citizens, and maybe one day you'll be up here too, for having done, you know, some really great feat in society that goes back to Pacific experiences. Thank you.